Morning all, I'd like to call the meeting to order and we'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So the first thing on the agenda would be to approve the minutes from June 27th meeting. Were there any corrections anyone noticed? Just to clarify, who do we have on the line from the board?
No, just Cristiano.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from June 27th? Second?
Second.
Okay, very good. All members in favor? Aye. The following application was approved by the committee of two for 770 Sag Main Street. The applicant proposed construction of a 300 square foot pergola. Nick and I thought that that was in order and we signed off on that. 778 Sag Main. We are still waiting on some information on that, and so that will need to be adjourned. Is there a motion to adjourn that?
I'll make it.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And when we get to the point where there are two enemies here, we'll just ask you to use your second name. So we are up to old business with 397 Sag Main Street. You'll see before you the night illuminations and light calculations, blazing calculations on the windows. And this was the calculation that was missing last time we were looking at this and discussing. So let's see. John, if you want to walk us through this, and there's also a site map to alleviate some concerns about the drawing plan, and then we can get on to figure better things.
John Ladd, the architect. We were asked to do the light study for the
Yes.
board,
Yep.
which we've done, and I think it's well, it's as you like. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Personally, I think it's too much light coming out of the house, but more than half the house I really can't on the on Sag Main Street. That's just there. I can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
And two side elevations are the existing lights that are currently on the structure.
Right.
So yes, that's the latest thing. And then we had this really cool night studies done, which I thought were pretty amazing looking. It was very fresh. I don't think I've ever seen a house that lit all in one time like that. But
You'd be surprised. I found that with the proposed north side elevation, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the south elevation. The night rendering is done as offered on an angle, and then you start to look at the south side elevation. The large windows on the first floor, I found a little large. I guess is the way I would describe it. And although that's not facing the street, it is a fair amount of light emission. And night light underneath is covered porch, but also in the, is that the new kitchen to the far right on the first floor?
The large kitchen, and to the far right is the, there's a new gym area over there.
I'm speaking about this area. Yeah, sure. of course. Speaking about these four on the first floor, is that kitchen or gym?
Well, this is the family room. And this is this is the gym room.
That's
Those
the
are
gym.
family.
Okay. No, I'm speaking about these large. ones
That's
here.
the gym room.
That's the, okay, yeah, it just strikes me as those are larger than anywhere else in the old house or in the new house, or, I get it, but I'm just voicing my personal concern that it's a little bit, of a large area in my mind. What exactly is the measurements of those windows?
I'm sorry?
What exactly is the dimensions of each of those windows? And then a calculation of the total glazing in those two areas?
I don't have it broken down specifically into each area, just the overalls.
Okay,
So I couldn't tell you that right now, but I could get that to you.
okay. Yeah, this perspective is not giving us a real idea. This is the one that's from the southwest corner of the house. It doesn't really give us a full front view of the amount of emission coming out of that because it's on an angle there.
Sure.
Usually we get a nighttime rendering of each of the four sides, especially of something this large. Just so that we are doing due diligence on behalf of the public for which we serve.
Hopefully the gym won't be used tonight and,
No, it's a hard rule to me.
yeah. And I feel like the one that's underneath the pergola might also be a little bit tamped down, just it won't glow as much all around.
Well, that is the roof over it,
Yeah.
but the other one doesn't.
Right,
The
right,
gym
right.
doesn't.
I hear your point.
Yeah.
My question was, where are the lights that are outdoors on the door or doorstep? Not really landscape lighting, but I know usually there's a light on the porch, stairs illuminated, or even if it's downlit, just because those are not reflected in here.
Well, we were going to try and not be responsible for the building at all, actually. We want to try and eliminate more lighting necessary. So there'd be step lights on the terraces as they go around the house.
Okay.
More ambient lighting than even dark sky lighting.
John, does that satisfy? code or not?
I don't know, I'd have to see, how are you planning on providing the egress on?
We are step lights on each side of the John, probably about 10 foot of illumination.
Right, so it's a step up into the door, you can fit it, sure.
Definitely. Or
Inside.
we didn't want to have any lights on the building itself, but that's just.
Can you give me a rough idea of what those two areas, with the large glazing is?
You know, I'll get back to that.
Okay, sure, yep, okay. Any other comments from board members? Ingrid, any comments?
No, just a lot of lights. I doubt that they're all going to be out at the same time.
It's good that you showed it that way, though, honestly. It's good they showed it that way, just so that you know what the max would be.
No, I know that, and that max is max.
I think it's also maxed out on the lower level, which is, there's privet all around and it's so far set back even from Main Street that it really be okay.
And it seems that the roof overhangs a fair amount for upper lighting.
Yes.
It's far back on Main Street, but it's on a hill,
It's on a hill, yeah.
That's true.
so it's really easy to see.
I think it shows us with the majority of the fenestration below, that best of intentions were used. But I do agree with John, some of the windows there, while having sort of the shingle style, the scale sort of deviates a little bit from in the gym and the kitchen area.
Okay. So at this point, do you want to come back later in the agenda and just offer that, or do you? want
I would
to-
say that the windows are, let's say, the 16 feet, 8 feet tall, 128 feet. Now that's just the opening. Now there's glazing that's got to be cut in for that.
Mhm.
So I said to you around 100 feet, maybe
100 square feet
square feet
per each four.
for one of the doors. The doors in the gym specifically.
For each door? No.
No, for the overall opening.
Uh,
If the doors are 16 feet long and they're 8 feet tall.
Okay.
Or do they accordion open? Are they netto wall style or?
No, they're two fixed guys and they're two sliding panels.
So you're saying they're 8 by,
This is the view from Parsonage.
8 by 16. I
that's the
believe.
view from Parsonage. And each panel is about 6 feet wide?
No, Chuck, each door is 4 feet, 4 feet. So so the opening is 16 feet in its length.
Mhm.
It's 8 feet tall.
Okay. All right. All right. And those are basically the same size, those 4.
Yes, they're the same. That was sort of the design that's trying to make them look kind of
Match,
together.
right? Okay. Any thoughts on that?
We're just looking at lights here, we're not looking at roof lines or anything else, right?
Well, we discussed that before.
I don't know what was resolved.
Well, that's a very good point. This is the additional portion of the file that was missing.
It's face the back of it.
No, they face the side of the property.
This is that's where you
This
sit.
corner of the house. This corner of the house.
So where is this window on this map?
Way back here.
And this is Parsonage,
No,
correct?
this is Parsonage.
No, this is Parsonage.
This window is here.
Oh, so this is
I think
Parsonage.
you're
this is
gonna
Sac-
see facing the backyard. Pardon me?
Yeah, I think this will,
Site map up.
given
This is backyard.
It's side.
it's side, because this is side, but you
Technically,
you wouldn't
like,
But you wouldn't see
it
it.
doesn't face the street. No, I get it, but that window is opposite to the street.
This
The
is-
neighbor.
this is- yeah, well, that's part of our church.
Yeah, I know, but it's even farther away. than the neighbor.
I think, yeah, actually, probably less than 45-degree angle is almost same.
As I
Doesn't
recall,
say anything about precedent.
right,
Other
no,
people's windows.
in this particular setting, you're saying this would be acceptable, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments outside of this discussion on the glazing of the 4 panel groups there on the south exposure?
The design of the house has been approved. I wasn't here.
Well, we
We're on
discussed it.
Zoom, I think, the last
We were on
meeting.
Zoom, I think, for the last meeting.
I was,
Yep.
but I didn't know it was approved. view on Parsonage Lane? That's an approved.
I believe it was. Essentially, we have not voted on this. We were still needed this into the file. Did you want to go back over everything?
No, I'll go with the flow. I just,
Okay. John, I recall the specific diagram showing that the connecting roof line fell short on one of the peaks. Is that correct?
The new gambrel gable is shorter
Right.
than the main gable, and its connecting link is also smaller than the main roof.
Right, is that showing that in these diagrams or is slightly different? Or-
Sorry, it's slightly different.
Okay. Did you put that up, Heather? Can you put this up?
I apologize, it is correct on the north side.
Mhm.
Oh, you know, it's also here on, it's also on the south side. This ridge here.
Yes.
This ridge is here, up on top, that's the new guy. And then it's lower than that. And the same is true on, it gets hidden in the other diagram because the old, this big shed roof there, that they don't intersect, they can't see it as clearly as this.
which is the one that's this one?
Yes, this is the lower, that's the middle one, this is existing house, and there's one.
Yeah.
Oh, John, why I'm here. Is this part of an outdoor fireplace or?
That's
is it-
not the fireplace, they're like, that's the fireplace.
Okay, so there's sort of a partition, so.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
white
But
brick
it doesn't, it
fireplace.
doesn't mean what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is.
These are all. Well, arguably the most visible spot.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, I just, you could argue that these would be virtually invisible from from any point on Sag Main Street.
Because the
With-
pergola
with-
fireplace.
With this punched out screened in porch. Yeah, if you draw a line from there, you basically get to there, and then this partition here, I mean, one could argue with a piece of masonry column that are looking at a window. But if this can go up, then just virtually hide that from the same. But then we're stuck with precedent. We're trying to support neighbors too.
Okay. At this point, where is the feeling of the board?
I'd approve too.
Ingrid? We're approving the application. At this point.
Okay.
As a relatively close neighbor. to
Yes.
this,
Yes.
would you like to say anything?
No,
She lives opposite this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, this is your view?
but I think it's pretty. I like it.
Mhm. If you lived on Parsonage, would you like it?
She
Well,
does live on the
we
other side
are.
of Parsonage.
We
Yes.
are. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
She's about the closest neighbor that you can get. to
Are
this.
you right behind the white farmhouse or you are the white farmhouse?
We are the
She's
white
the
farmhouse, yeah.
And I'd say that an investment in modifying, getting people what they want on a single style house keeps it from being turned into a glass box in the future. This will cost the next person more.
It's part of the historic district, so I'm not sure if
It'll ever get there,
Glass
yeah.
box, so. Trying to get that certain things in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I like it.
You do.
I do.
Okay, so I think it sounds like you're ready to make a motion, is that correct? Okay. I'm gonna just preface the motion saying that under these particular settings in this particular location and the particular location of the house on the property. That is sort of the angle that we're including into this approval. Okay. And so is there a motion with that understanding?
This is beyond fenestration. This is it.
This is it. Yeah.
Site-specific.
Yeah, site specific, and also the fact that the intention of shown in this site plan here to planting so that the garage doors are obscured from the new driveway entrance and the sight line from Parsonage Lane. Those are the two particular things that I want to put into this motion.
I would say also that there's no plans for sconces and kind of further outdoor lighting attached to the house.
That gets decided by code. Okay. So is there a motion on all those points?
I'll make it.
Okay, is there a second?
What am I seconding?
A motion to approve the entire package.
Really, the house?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no. This is a big motion,
Big motion.
huge.
It's a doozy for Emily for her first one.
Okay. I won't be here.
Emily, you're up on a hill too. Is
I am.
are your eyes?
Sure, her hill is a lot shorter than this.
Right, so you still have the privet to protect a little bit for your view,
Right. Right.
but not maybe as much for the neighbors behind you? Which is
Not
also
too many.
Say that again.
the neighbor behind your White House, right, up the hill a little
Right.
more, is maybe looks more into the driveway openings.
That's the garden.
There's a house back there.
Okay.
Behind the garden.
Oh, that's it. That's a ways off the road.
Right. But I don't know. I can't think of what their view is, what Richie's view is from that angle. But from our angle, where our house is, we don't, what this is proposing is going up.
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
So it's not really,
it's going east from what's.
Right.
I think the points west is burned up a little bit too. The house, sorry, the house to your east is burned up as well. So I imagine it wouldn't be a direct view.
The intent is to maintain the hedges for privacy and also for obscurity and so forth. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Let's move forward then with the motion. So are you in agreement, Kimber?
If I vote no, it still passes, right?
Yes, I think so.
I'm gonna vote no.
Okay.
I did not have a good opinion of this. It's too light, too big, too much. I think we might be. I think it's just too big and too much.
Okay. You've expressed your view.
Thank you.
Very good. So the motion would carry with 3 of you, so let's do the motion and vote. So the motion is carried and now it's time to vote. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And please state your name for the record.
Megan.
Tony Woods.
Emily Bloom.
Okay, and those against?
Against angry.
And I would vote also no at the moment on this at this stage.
No.
So it passes 3-2. Very good. Thank you.
Can I raise my hand? Just for the benefit of Mr. Margolis and myself, Bruce Williams, who's the current owner. So what I've heard is it's approved.
Yes.
Yeah, 32, it passes. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your help.
All right, thanks, John. John, I did take some folks from St. Anne's over and they are interested in that back porch, okay?
Oh, cool, great.
And I'm trying to find a home for the pergola, so I don't know how I'm gonna get not the pergola, the
Oh, you did hear?
The gazebo.
gazebo, okay? but I can't figure out how it's getting out of the property. Until you cut the new edge.
Private truck.
Yes.
So, come out.
Okay.
I think it's
No, for construction, don't you have to pull through some private anyway and go back?
They're gonna
Actually, trucks.
They're gonna widen it for the construction.
probably move through the new opening.
I do, I would like to keep it in just,
In the, Mtg and the.
I want to sign up again.
Thinking about approaching.
Oh, here it is, yeah. The only thing that bothers me about it is this, the gate, the light.
Really, all they're doing is.
Might look at the,
Yeah.
That is a great job.
So that's the one house that. Always great.
Existing house.
Oh, this is. Oh, no, that's okay.
You want the video of this,
I think
So that's what you think.
but,
That's
I
what
want to
makes
get,
it I do feel like they preserve the integrity of the design, even though it is wrong. That is.
because we will get together. Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you.
there's.
Next item, so we need to sign off.
This one?
Sign
So
up.
every time there's someone there. you ask us. The little sun thing that she knows.
You're gonna sign now.
I guess they would, yeah.
Do you want your glasses?
I guess they would have to, but still, there's no way to turn around. without-
Yeah, do the bottom line, quick note.
Turn the house. We need to turn the house.
It's a pretty, it's almost like a two edges and then a triangle court. Right in there.
Materials.
But it's a quarter mile away.
Yeah, no, that's.
And, having. Give us a site per-
But I don't think anybody has a sign.
No.
Yeah, the rest of
They
them.
have to sign.
Was it? One of the things, Chris, the lawyer's time for historic structures.
Today's date is 20th.
It is.
Okay, very good. And you're going to be under- Okay. Thank you. All right, so can you zoom into that site? Please. And
Could we just push this? Go. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry.
okay, so next item is a proposed driveway gate at 629 Hedges Lane. This is at the far end of Hedges Lane, near the entrance to the property. We're going to zoom in on the distance from Hedges Lane, which appears to be 459 feet. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then can we zoom into the site plan for not the street, but the house and where the gate is located? And do we have someone here representing the applicant? Very good. And
Gate up by the house or down by the road?
it's right there where the arrow is.
Oh, so someone can come all the way up the driveway and.
And park, yes.
Huh.
So just to go over the materials, concrete base, plate, steel, this will be painted or
It's not going to
rusty?
be painted, it's going to be rust.
It's gonna be rusty and rough.
Yes.
Okay, that was one of my questions. And the cedar
Cedar.
is natural cedar and that's mounted on steel? or no?
Yes.
Okay. And then the cross members, which we see in the diagram here, the three slender rails are
Those going to
also
be
steel.
Yeah, roasted steel.
Okay,
The rest is going to be.
so it's rather rusty and rustic in its own way. Is there a call box on the diagram?
Oh, no, it's not cold box, but I assume when you see the driveway,
Can we go back to that and zoom in, please? Even more, for the sake of those with bad glasses.
and the edge of the fence meeting the edge of the driveway,
Uh-huh,
that's where I'm assuming I'm going to install.
okay. So what is the distance in off the line to the gate posts? We have an idea of what that distance is, because the gate needs to be in. John, is that a shared driveway or is it separate driveways?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a short driveway.
It's a common driveway, so
Common
flash
driveway.
or something together, yeah.
Okay, so is there any set-in distance on that?
Well, no, I mean, it basically looks like that gate and the call box, all the equipment has to be on their property, can't be on someone else's.
No
So
problem,
the gate posts and the call box all need to be located on their property.
no problem. That it have to be that way. Okay, should we? That going to be like 11 tours from the gate post of the driveway right now. But this going to be inside of the property.
So the other thing is that for emergency vehicles, it has to be open and hold automatically.
Yes.
Yes, that's understood. And also, if the power goes off, you need an electric backup so that they can be opened in an emergency during a power outage. Correct?
I have to check if they have a generator on it.
They'll have to have something, because that's the law, to get emergency vehicles in 24/7 during the storm. Okay?
Usually they have like 1 week battery.
That's not my problem. I just needed to open for the sake of everybody's safety.
What is the reason for the gate?
I'm sorry,
What is the reason for the gate?
the reason, I have a good question.
You've been to the site, correct?
That question I need to do the owner in order to respond.
Why do they want the gate?
If you visit the site before, probably in a big truck maybe, what happens if you went and this gate was put up with that other gate right there? If no one's home, you're backing up maybe that whole 450 feet. I understand that this, because he's the last person with no gate on the area, they're using him to turn around,
Yeah,
but
I assume if they put another gate at the same distance we put, the one we put it now, there is a room to, they can turn it back up.
Austin Powers.
And what is the gate for?
He doesn't know.
I didn't know, but I think the reason is like, everybody's thinking they don't want the people just getting the property.
Well, I don't feel comfortable approving a gate without a reason.
They have already to go all the way along that driveway
And they can't turn.
and to get to the end, and the gate is locked.
Both gates are locked,
Both gates are
and
locked.
it's maybe 3 packages a day for the average Sagaponic residents these days. That's a lot of beeping.
Yeah,
as they back
I
down.
would vote against this. I don't know.
Another of my clients, he asked me for a price. And I hear from another person, now they start installing cars in this area.
I've heard that too, yeah.
They start installing cars in this area.
Yes.
It's not like it was before.
And
Now
seems
it's
safe.
changing a lot.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is the board would like to have an explanation as to the necessity of this. And that needs to be written in the letter from the property owner, all right?
Okay.
Also, excuse me, but there should be some kind of a turnaround if you've got a gate that's closed and locked and someone's come all the way down so that they can turn around. Maybe put it on your property, I mean, if this gate is approved. So you're gonna have a big garbage truck like Norsec coming up there and he gets to the end and what? No, he can't get in. He's
There
gotta
is a
back up that whole entire way.
Have you been to the site?
What?
Have you been to the?
Not yet.
I went this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is a space.
Oh, there's a,
Now, if they put another gate next to ours, it's a
We can
space.
turn
If they
around.
put a more to the street, no space.
That's what they want.
That's ridiculous.
I'd say, I mean, if this gate was placed similarly to the hedge as the one to the west, there'd be no turn, I mean, that gravel driveway, two cars can't pass, if two cars meet each other, one's backing up, it's pretty tight there.
But one car,
But if you share those-
But I had to trespass slightly to turn around there. I mean, I guess as a member of the board.
Doesn't count.
All right, so I think they would like an explanation as to the necessity. Also, perhaps this may necessitate some sort of an agreement with the neighbor who shares the driveway to account for turnaround, or whether people are just gonna have to back all the way back out.
Two cars
But
can't
this
pass.
will become a little bit more clearer as they think through that process with explaining why this is necessary, okay?
But when you've gone this far,
And can that be conveyed by letter request? Okay, great. Is there a motion to adjourn this?
I'll make it.
Is there a second to adjourn?
yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed? All right.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I think, yeah. Not being, it's not a solution.
The issue is not there, it's the issue. Right.
Yeah, flat on needs a cul-de-sac.
Some easement or something.
Okay, so we are up to, we have to hand out some files here, but then we can get started.
Keep your key.
The Mtg rendering,
No, I'm not.
I'm just supporting chicken.
It's okay.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Can I just address our attorney?
He's online.
He's here.
He's here.
I'm here.
Where?
I'm here. I'm online.
Henry Lockheim. I'm a neighbor of Mr. Forgot his name. Anyway, Jason Mudrick, and we have looked at the Johnson property and figured out what would work well here, what would not work well here. And I mean, we're friends and we've discussed this, so I don't know if I'm going or discussing.
I'm sorry. I didn't catch the last part there. You said you weren't sure.
Okay, we have discussed this with our neighbor, Jason Mudrick. We have discussed this property, the Johnson property, and what he would like to do with it, and can he do it? And of course, I didn't say what he could do, but this has been a discussion. So I just don't know if it's legal for me to proceed here.
She is a direct neighbor to this,
I know,
and her
he's-
question
he's our
is
neighbor.
whether she should be,
Recuse herself from.
right, That's the point of the question.
Yes. After 3 hours.
Yeah, so typically, especially like in the zoning board applications, we would normally say if you're within the distance of the public notice where the mailings would go out, you would recuse yourself. So if you said you're a direct neighbor of the house, it probably would be safest to recuse yourself from the consideration of the application.
But I'm still gonna have an opinion.
Well, it's just a
I know.
discussion.
I'm telling her.
All right, very good. And I'm sorry, you.
Matt Collins, that coming off. And David Martin should also be present via Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, in our office as well.
All right.
So we are here today to discuss the potential of 2 structures at 53 Hedges Lane. I believe there are 2 separate applications here. One is for the existing dwelling that's currently roughly 45 feet off of the street, 15 feet off the front property line, and a proposed guest cottage that would be fully compliant in terms of setback coverage, etc. So I think the hot topic here is the repurposing for the we're looking to change the use or the definition of the current dwelling that's not compliant in terms of front yard setback, as well as sky exposure plan. We would like to convert this dwelling into an accessory structure. It would be used as a gym, which is essentially going to be a single open space on the interior. And from what I understand, it's a historically protected facade, so we have no intent to change the external appearance of this as viewed from the street.
Well, Nella, look at this. Gotta look at this, Nella.
Who is speaking?
Oh,
This is Adrian Colley, the owner of 38 Hedges Lane, across the street. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was being heard, and I won't say any more, but I would like to, I will participate and listen, and I have some questions. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was being, I was on the call, but I'm here, and I was quite interested in Mrs. Lockheim's comments about her discussions with respect to this particular piece of property, because Mrs. Lockheim and her family are on that side. I'm directly across the street at 38 Hedges Lane and have a very distinct interest in what is going to be happening to this old piece of property that belonged to the Johnsons. And so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, very good.
We'll let Mr. Collins do his presentation, and then you'll have a chance to add comments or questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you. So in order to bring this, what we plan to make an accessory building out of the existing home into compliance in terms of lot coverage and GFA for the lot, we would reduce the size of it by removing this wing that projects off the back of the home. Then we propose to build a relatively small, especially for the zoning district, cottage of about 2,500 square feet. In terms of lot coverage, it's roughly 3,400 overall GFA on the site, which is entirely as of right. And that would really be a guest cottage for the owner's principal dwelling on 24 Fairfield Top. And as part of this application, we would like to relocate an existing 2-car garage, which is roughly 450 square feet, further away from the road. So that would actually be towards the southwest of the lot.
Okay, could you repeat, this is the location of the cottage or relocation of?
Relocating a 2-car detached garage, which can be seen from Hedges Lane as you pass by. Yeah. It's a relatively small structure. I don't think it's historically significant in any way. Our best approach might be just rebuild in the proposed location. As of now, the plan is to relocate. So the rear facade of the existing home, as you can see in our proposed elevations here, would really be the only elevation subject to any visual modification or architectural aesthetic modification from the exterior. So the client would like to have taller windows that would essentially stretch from floor to.
Move to whatever page you're speaking about.
So you don't mind
Answer.
jumping to the elevations. That would be the front and the side elevation, which remain unchanged. That would be the proposed rear elevation, which we do propose a lot of additional glazing compared to what's currently there, but this is facing away from the street and really opens up the interior of the space to the rear of the property. And also, request the client allows this gym to breathe quite well and utilize the I believe there are renderings. We will continue moving through the so if you want to zoom in on those, you can actually see the aggregate development or proposed development of the site here with both the existing house, which will be repurposed, and the proposed barn-like structure, which is to be the guest cottage. So the rendering to the top right, labeled rendering 2, that shows the rear elevation, which is proposed in the existing building. And to the right side is the proposed barn-like cottage. You scroll down to the lower 2 renderings. This would be the existing cottage as seen from Hedges Lane on the lower left rendering. And the right side, you see in this rendering to the right, you see the existing dwelling and then the barn-like guest cottage beyond.
And this serves the main house, which is to the south of it.
Correct. Yes,
And the barn is a brand new structure, yeah.
correct. But we're going to actually side it and roof it to match the existing dwellings there as well. So we have the same material, which is to essentially replace what's currently cladding the guest house or the existing house. Cedar shingle, cedar roof, roughly 7 inches exposure.
One observation that I will make is the additional structure which you are proposing does not really echo the 18th century or the 19th, early mid-19th century existing house. And that being in a historic structure, there needs to be more harmony with that. We have to abide by the Department of Interior's guidelines. Those are some of the observations that I initially would make on that.
Okay.
So that secondary dwelling on it, or it becomes the primary dwelling, would need to be of character, I think.
Okay.
I would echo that. In rendering 2, I'm feeling it does not, it looks more like
Looks like a 60s.
maybe, and maybe I would agree with that. I think it's gonna, it's not matching. Right. I feel that it feels a little unbalanced with the different roof lines, and I think the windows on the top could be more interesting, with the columns maybe being a little bit more substantial and the sliding glass door being a little bit more interesting. I don't mind the barn from the view from this side. I just think in rendering 4, I think it's rendering 2 that I'm not gelling with.
I think also the location, I think if and I appreciate you're trying to make it the accessory structure, but you wouldn't have your residence 15 feet away from your livestock. It seems so close together and almost does read a little holistically. I have less of an issue with the barn as a freestanding structure, because I see you trying to follow like a historical, you added a wing 50 years later and whatnot.
So generally, there's no objection to the barn concept. We just need to alter the detailing on site to be more.
It's a little less flinchingly barn-like, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And referencing barns around here, even as a marketing tool, could probably be pretty helpful.
It's something we're certainly not opposed to.
Yeah.
The board has not approved a cupola in about 15 years.
I had to take my cupola off.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I had a previous one that fell off and I'm not even trying.
So just the other feeling that I have towards what would become the gym is, if I understand the plan correctly, it would be gutting the second story. And you'd open that up to the top of the rafters that support the roof. Is that correct?
Maybe not to the rafters, we'd have to have a flat ceiling in there, but it would be above the windows of the second story.
Okay.
You need some sort of trussing.
And right now, I'm doing some homework yet on this, but I believe you have to document the existing structure. And there are guidelines with that also from the Department of Interior, so that you are doing a full floor measurement of the second story. Just measurements out the wazoo to record the historic registry before you alter it. But my other concern is as a dwelling, and I mean a residence, there's certain expectations of what that's going to look like at night. Okay, being it curtained or whatever. As we move towards a multi-use gym with LED lighting, this thing is just going to glow in the historic district like nothing else. So there needs to be sensitivity to that. Very low luminary rating on like a yellow light to keep it within a consistent mind that you're still in the historic district.
Right. Perhaps even, solar shades or something on the interior as well to diffuse or diminish.
Yeah,
any
and
output of light.
every sunny morning, you're gonna drive by and you're actually gonna see the sun coming through these expanses of glass in the back. Again, it's taking something that the community's known for 140 years and just changing the heck out of it. So I'd appreciate some sensitivity to that, so that all of a sudden it's not like a farmer's market, shed or something like that.
Right. Understood.
You're within that segment of Hedges Lane, which is the historic district, and it being a registry, it needs special attention to it.
Right.
And there are some relatively confusing guidelines to a non-architect as myself, just to go through this practice. Okay.
How many acres is the property?
I believe it's 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's
just under one.
This is I can ask, okay, this is a private gym?
Yes.
So there won't be cars and for all his friends, there won't be cars parked around?
Almost certainly not. There's actually the required amount of parking for this site, for what will be the principal dwelling, the guest cottage, and for the gym. However, the reality is that almost anybody who uses this gym is almost certainly going to be parked on property at 24 Fairfield. I would be a guest at that residence, and they'd most likely just be walking over to utilize this gym. Unless they're, of course, they're in this cottage here. But I think most cars will be parked at 24.
I'm trying to understand what this is. The new.
Yes.
I'm just keeping up on the fact that.
We're just looking at a satellite photograph of the location and just getting some ideas off of the perspective of that. That might be helpful to us as we will probably come back and go further with this discussion. But just to have a reference of that might be helpful, and I can pull that.
Two properties, like 24.
Right, like a satellite photograph, just to have an idea of what the compound begins to take a look at. Any other initial takes on what you've seen today on the board?
My personal, the new barn, the new structure you're adding,
It's the new house, yeah.
I would not put it anywhere visible. I would try and tuck it more directly behind the original home instead of adding a third.
Again,
Thank
this
you
is a
for-
perspective that not all of us have. You've got the benefit of your phone and the aerial
Okay.
photograph.
Can she pull it up?
I don't think they've received a satellite picture of this. Have you?
Would it be
Okay,
3 hedges?
they can't just.
Explain why there's no pool.
Sort of alternative to that, be that we,
Already commented.
we propose the same location, but an extensive planting plan perhaps to screen it from the street. Because I know that by pushing that building beyond or behind the existing dwelling.
It gets into
certainly
your travel zone.
alter
Yeah.
the approach of the driveway that's passing through the property.
Does the owner anticipate the main approach for the compound to be on hedges or along, whatever the one is?
It's hard to say it's gonna be the main approach, but it's certainly a secondary entrance, most likely the more utilized of the two,
Yeah.
but I can't answer that. No.
Okay, so at this point, do you have any other things to share with us?
Well, I guess, just to summarize then, the two big question marks here. One is the feasibility of changing the use of existing dwelling to a gym. So it sounds like with some sensitivity, of course, to the historic context of the home, that's acceptable or something the board is willing to move forward with. And the barn concept of the guest cottage, obviously, with historic sensitivity as well as a concept that you're comfortable.
I think we'd like to explore it further. I think another discussion like this would help.
Right.
And it will give the chance for the board to look at their guidelines a little bit further and get used to this sort of thing. We haven't had to deal with a lot of this yet, but we're also working with some people who are new on the board and need to spend a little bit more time looking at guidelines as well.
Okay.
So would next month be an opportunity, or you can let us know when you have some progress on some other ideas?
Absolutely. We also require several variances for this project to move forward as well. Parking lot, setbacks, et cetera. We just want to ensure that there are no hard no's in this proposal here so that we are not wasting time, of course, going forward. So that being said, I think next month is certainly significant.
Hello, could I make some comments before we, or I don't know what the comment time period is for.
Adrian?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you speak, but I want to kind of close out our.
Fine, understood, sorry.
Thank you.
So yes, I think next month is something we can match. Back with the altered proposal.
And Christopher?
Down here.
Yes. Is there any particular policy that I should be adhering to as the public makes a comment on this?
You can allow public comment on it, but I think it's right to leave it to a certain portion of the meeting. So
I think I'm there.
yeah, no,
Historical homes being introduced.
You can express any thoughts about that.
It seems a little odd that the historic home is being introduced. I would think that the barn in the back that you're adding would be more gym.
Right.
One issue is I don't think you have legal second floor bedrooms there. So I think in the previous, the existing footprint is such that it's like fixed floor ceilings and.
The second story accommodations in the historic structure are very, very low ceiled.
Okay.
And a discussion that happened a few years ago that was put on the market indicated that if you were going to make the second floor habitable, you would end up changing the facade to extend the roof higher. So it would lose most of its character.
Find some low elevation points.
Unless you start dropping the floor into the basement.
Or it's just a one floor home.
Right.
What they're doing here.
We also want to make a point too, that we felt it was both for our owners' benefit as well as the communities by not looking to get a variance to expand the size of this existing home rearward and put a larger or more building volume closer to the road, rather than essentially reduce the size of it and then put that volume back 80 or 90 feet toward the setbacks.
And I would assume, or I'd be comfortable in the leap of faith that the needs of us and you guys would be aligned in terms of not having glaring open windows with your client working out as everyone walks by.
Right.
He wants it as little as we want.
Right. Very
I'm not
much.
sure.
Absolutely right.
Fit in this podium.
Okay, so I think at this point, Adrian, if you want to interject any thoughts. Adrian?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Yes, as I say, 38 Hedges Lane is right across the street, and we look exactly right over the Johnson's house. I refer to it as the Johnson house. I just had a couple of questions at the outset. Is there any kind of formal notice given of this application to the neighbors or whomever lives close to this property? Is that required by your regulations? I mean, how do we know about this other than just checking the website every once in a while?
This particular application came before us as a discussion item, and I believe that is not required as it comes across as a discussion item.
But neither would a building permit, only when it goes to ZBA.
Right, okay.
I didn't hear that. I have your sound doesn't come through very well to the outside.
So the notification to neighbors is only on applications that are going through to the zoning board of appeals. Because you're actually asking for a special allowance.
Well, so this initial I realize this is a discussion session.
Yep.
Whatever the next session is, however it's denominated, will be, the only way it will be noticed is through the website. Is that correct?
That is
Correct.
correct.
Okay, but how do I, for example, am I able to see any of the plans or discussions or so forth that are held, that are available to the public? Do they go up on the website too?
Not prior to the meetings, no.
Okay, so the only time that the documentation that's submitted to you all goes up on the website is at the time of the meeting.
At the time of the meeting and after the minutes are approved, it's on
Okay.
it's also on a YouTube channel
On the website.
on the website that you can access the the hearings.
All right, let me
Mr. Cully, if you were in the area, you'd be able to come in person here to Village Hall and view the plans. But I know that you're not local.
I'm not, I understand that. Well, unfortunately, I'm a long way away. But anyway, I want just a couple of questions. Somebody asked the question with respect to the access to the property and whether or not the existing current access would remain the same. And I wasn't sure what the answer was.
So we're actually proposing to relocate the existing access point or the curb cut to if you're facing the home from the street, from the left side of the house to the right side of the house.
I'm sorry, from the left to the right side. So the right side of the house is the house closest to Sag Main.
Correct.
So that's kind of what I would refer to as slightly down the hill, down the slope there. So
Right.
that would be, that access on that side then would be fairly close to the Lockheim property. Is that correct?
Closer, yes.
Okay, so, because I know where the Lockheim access is, and so the new access would be almost adjacent to the current Lockheim access.
Pretty close.
Close to equally
Okay.
as far from the lot line.
All right, so then on the other side where the access is at the present time, what would that become? Would that be a building there?
There would be a garden proposed there currently, where the current driveway is, and then as you enter you go about halfway into the depth of the site currently, and there's a 2-car detached garage. From that detached car garage forward to the street is planned to be gardens, and then the existing detached garage from roughly there back would be the proposed cottage location.
Okay, so does that show on your plans?
Yes.
Okay, well, I have a little trouble. Oh, I see it here, right. So where so that front part, then with the front part of that property where the driveway is, and I guess there's an old garage there, that all will become garden from the side of the house all the way up to the next property line. So that you'd have a whole garden area that faces Hedges Lane there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how deep would that garden be?
That garden goes from the hedge, which we would propose at the property line, back roughly 70 feet to the face of the proposed cottage.
Okay, now the proposed, I'm looking at the plan that's up on the site right now. And is that proposed site is the one that's called, I can't see it, two-story wooden frame. So you have a renovated coach house down there on the left. Is that correct down there? And it's a square, and does that remain or doesn't it?
That's the garage.
And that stays or doesn't stay?
It's being relocated.
Relocated, all right, so, okay, but that area then where the garage is, down to the front of the building, the existing building, that all be garden along there?
Towards the front. You zoom in on the bottom right.
I see now, I see where the entryway is now, I understand that, so whoa, okay, it's moving, I can't, okay, so the entryway there, the driveway there, okay, I see, so the new building there is behind the hedge here in the rendering number 4, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's actually, it's about 70 feet behind that hedge, as you see in this.
Okay, so, all right, and, okay, and actually where that the new building is and where the hedge is where the current driveway is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's going. And let me just ask you, apropos of the driveway, now, rumor has it, and I just get this kind of secondhand, that the owner of this property that bought bought it from the Johnsons, or the Johnson estate, also owns a new piece of property that's right behind this particular parcel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you have access, and I think that somebody asked this question a little earlier this morning, where the primary access to this particular property would remain. And I think, and whether or not the access from the Fairfield Pond Road would also have access into this particular piece of property and vice versa. In other words, you could come into this piece of property and go across, go through the property line and and to the next piece of property which the current owner owns, and then you could go out Fairfield Pond Road. Is that the way it's intended to operate?
That is correct, yes. You would have the option to enter off Hedges or Fairfield.
Okay, so you're going to have the option to either enter on either side and then join in a common driveway or parking lot, whatever you want to call it, in the back behind these properties. Because I notice on the Fairfield Pond side, you actually have, there's a big fence. That entrance there has been fenced in with a big steel fence that doesn't appear to move. And so I understand that. And I guess I only ask the question is that how common is that, where you have two pieces of property have been joined together, or they're not joined together, they're separate pieces of property, but they have common access from two different streets in the town. I just ask that as a question, whether that's possible, whether it's proper, whether it's legal, whatever. So that's a question I would have. Now on the new building there, which takes the place of the old garage, the taller building, the new dwelling. Now, is that where the gym is going to be?
No, the gym is in the historic house.
The gym is in this historic house on what, on the first floor?
Yes, the only floor.
Okay, so nobody's going to be living in the current house.
That's correct.
The sole purpose of the old Johnson house, it was the old Roselle farmhouse way back when, is going to be a gym. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I wonder, one can only ask how that fits into the kind of the planning, design, structure, rules and regulations of the village of Sagaponack, and how that actually fits into the letter and the law and the spirit of the historic preservation site. But I'll leave that to another time. But I mean, okay, so how, and that, so that gym is going to be the entire first floor of the existing building?
And the facade will remain the same.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Same.
The facade will remain exactly the same. The issue is that there, I guess, is that there's no second floor headroom. So it has to remain a one floor building. And the only thing they can think of to do with a one floor building is to make it into a gym. And I agree with you, Mr. Hawley, that a gym in a historic home.
Well, I mean, I mean, you know, if you ask the kind of the average man on the street in the village of Sagaponack, you point to that house and say that's going to be a gym, and in our beautiful historic site in the village of Sagaponack, with it gets all the acclaim that it does from around the world, we got a gym on the first floor of one of the oldest buildings in the village. You got to kind of ask yourself now. And okay, so you can't put anything up on the second floor of that property. What's going to be up there? Is the gym going to be 2 stories high?
The gym will be 2 stories high.
Well, 1.5.
It's a story and a half.
Well, okay, so it's a story and a
It's not 2-story.
I understand that, but it's a story and a half with nothing above it except the roof.
Yes.
That's correct.
One of the issues was to make the second floor up to code. They would have to change the roof line or raise the entire structure.
Okay, but they're not going to do that.
No, this seemed to have been a solution. Whether the other options were even tenable is luckily not.
Okay, fair enough. I'm only trying to understand how this is going to work, regardless of the consequences and the implication of it are for you all as the regulators. So you have this beautiful old farmhouse, which will right in the center of Sagaponack, right at the heart of Sagaponack, the village of Sagaponack, in the heart of the Sagaponack Historic District. This place will be sitting there, and it'll be a gym. Now, and I'm told I'm told this is going to be a private gym for the owner, and so that the owner of the building in the back, in other words, the only people who will be able to use this if it's a private gym are whoever would be in the new house to the left, the new house. And then I assume then that means that the fellow who owns the property in back, the big new house that's being built out there, will have access to the gym. So it will be he and his family and friends that will be using the gym in the front, but nobody else. Is that correct?
Yes.
Adrian,
Yes.
no member of the public would have been allowed to use the Johnson house except the Johnson family. I don't understand.
I understand that, but it was a residence in which people lived, not a gym. And I mean, because gyms are by definition public dwellings. I mean, have public use. I mean, I realize in this day and age. I mean, for example, the question becomes: I mean, how about one of the paddleboard? I mean, will this be a site for a paddleboard in there too?
He has a fair
The
point.
lawyer's here, so don't encourage him. The architect's here.
He makes a fair point, because if I have a gym like that, and I would invite 5 of my friends over to do a workout class with the music blaring, I would.
Well, not only that, but it's a wonderful venue. A wonderful venue for parties, weddings, whatever. It'd be perfect. But only for the person who owned that piece of property, which is the family that lives in back, and through which the driveway will go into that lot, and come back out again. It seems somewhat.
It's crazy, but it's not under the purview of us to address social inequality, which is.
Well, I'm not saying it's social inequality at all. It's the issue is really whether or not that this is the kind of use that one anticipates or expected in a historic village community like Sagaponack, where a beautiful old house is being used as a gym. That's all. Anyway, I leave it at that. I'm sure this will come up. And the other thing is that the Johnson house goes back to at least the 1850s. And it was one of the original farmhouses for the old Roselle Farm, which took up a lot of that space, as you all know, back up on the hill over as Hedges Lane goes out towards Town Light Road. And it really is a very historic old building. And it really is, it was central to basically the old village of Sagaponack. And it seems a shame that is being turned, I mean, it would be that being turned into something that borders on almost a commercial venture. And I mean, and there's no way of guaranteeing that 10 or 15 years from now, this particular piece of property would continue to be used as a private gym facility. And somehow designating as a gym, I mean, I assume that means that can't be used for any other purpose other than a gym. And so anyway, the only other thing is that, for example, the water has now been put in, the water line from the street, or from the water company now runs into the Johnson house. I mean, I know that because I have the water line running into 38. Now, the question really is whether that water line that is connected through on Hedges Lane will actually be run through or can be run through to the property in the back. I don't think it can, but I really wonder whether or not this is consistent with the whole setting of these houses in downtown in the village of Sagaponack as being part of the historic district. I just question that.
Well, we're now sort of familiarizing ourselves with the 248-page guideline of historic structures. And one of the things we're looking into is whether we can necessarily allow a variance to go from a residential structure to accessory structure, whether that's in some violation.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's talking and you say we, is that, you mean the village of Sagaponack?
The board members just received.
Board members. And where are the rules, where are the historic preservation rules are located, where is that a state requirement?
He's referring to the Department of Interior guidelines, which our village code directly references and uses as the guidelines when dealing with.
Okay, so that's the U.S. Department of Interior.
Yes.
Okay, and they're referenced in the village code.
Yes.
So you can go to the village code and get access to the citation to the Department of Interior regulations.
Yes, it's referenced in the village code for under the section pertaining to historic properties and structures. And then if you Google it, you should be able to find the Department of Interior regulations.
I mean, I just don't know whether anybody's had these kinds of discussions, and maybe this is maybe what I say is just it's not applicable to the situation. But those are questions that I have, and I don't know whether and it's hard for me, absent a public meeting like this where there's some discussion, to even know what's being discussed, how it's being directed, how it's being addressed, and so forth, and who makes the determination as to whether it actually meets all of these requirements. Is that something that the village does through its own attorney?
The board here is doing that. Right now, this is only a discussion item, but ultimately, right. Yeah, when something comes to the AHRB, they make that determination when it comes to the whether the proposed plan meets the guidelines under under the village code as well as
they'll make that at a public meeting.
Well, this is a public meeting. I mean,
well, no, but I mean, but when the board of trustees has decided on what their decision will be, they'll discuss it at an open meeting.
This board, it doesn't go to the board of trustees.
Once a month, we meet, the Architectural and Historical Review Board meets once a month on Mondays at noon, and the agenda is put up right beforehand.
Okay. All right.
And our guidelines are up there as well on the Sagaponack Village website. Our guidelines, what we try to do as a board.
And we as the applicant, we want to work with neighbors like yourselves to, make sure you're satisfy the requirements of the board so that really everybody is happy with this project at the end of the day.
I guess my question would be, if a vote were taken of the residents and the residents of the village of the owners of village of Sagaponack, if it were put to a vote, what their feelings about on the subject would be. I doubt many of them even know that this has even been discussed. That's one of the problems. I just heard about it through somebody having mentioned it to me. Otherwise, I would have never known about it. So, anyway, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for your comments, Adrian. So at this point, did you have anything else to offer at this point?
Just about covers it, other
Okay.
than, you know, I understand Adrian's
So
comments.
what I would like to do is adjourn, and we'll take a look at some of your other ideas next month. And I think that finishes up this particular item on the
Thank you.
agenda. Thank you very much, Pat. We do need a committee of two.
I can offer my service.
Okay, very good.
Although if I may, and
Well, we're gonna discuss. and we'll-
you have an alternate, if I'm an alternate next time, am I allowed to? I guess we,
Our alternate, yeah, alternates have served.
We've got to see how many, you as an alternate could be committee of two.
Yeah.
If that's what you're asking, yeah.
oh yeah,
Okay, very good. So, you, Tony, and I, very good. And is there a motion to adjourn the official meeting? Okay, is there a second? Okay,
No.
A question.
okay, all those in favor to close the meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And the recording is stopped.
There's Mr. Stevie out. Adrian Conley. Skill, but
So I just have Chris,
No,